What's up, true believers? Chris Mack coming at you with some more 90s nostalgia, awesome action figure and accessories today. We are going over the Playmates WildC.A.T.s covert action team, Grifter, who is my favorite from this team. Oh yeah. And so these figures you're gonna have to either do collect, talk to local collectors or go through a secondary market to pick these up because they are no longer available. So before we go through the bullet bike, let's take a closer look at Grifter. And man, do I wish that they would release like a DC Direct, since WildStorm's owned by DC now. I wish we could get an updated Grifter, at least, if not the whole WildC.A.T.s team. And I love that Jim Lee artist rendition there. Love how it says WildC.A.T.s, just so awesome. And then the trading card, oh man, I miss comic book trading cards. Those things were such awesomeness. You come around here to the side, and just like with Zealot and Spartan, it tells you all the accessories he comes with, which is really cool. You come around here, you see all the characters from the wave, and you go read up his identification cards, accessories, so I'll make sure to get all sorts of close-ups there so you guys can read them and just see how cool toys were in the early 90s. Come around this way, it's just a clear blister pack. Same thing on the bottom, same thing on the top there, so you know, just a gorgeous figure. Now with that said, let's talk about the cool accessory that Playmates made for him, and I love that this thing still actually has a collector's edition number on there. That is just too cool, and I love that it's an artist rendition. I'm not sure if that's a Jim Lee, but nonetheless, looks great there. Come around to the side, you see the actual figure and what's not, and I love that it says Toys R Us. Oh, my little heart's broken right now. Then you see Playmates WildStorm Universe, tells you what the bike does. Come around here to the back, shows you the two packs and the giant ones because they made 12-inch versions of the WildC.A.T.s. The bullet bike, so I'll make sure you get close-ups on this so you guys can read them as well. Come around here to the side, same thing. Bottom, same thing. Top, same thing. Nonetheless, you know, are these figures and their accessories awesome or not? So let's go ahead and get these out of the package and get a closer look at them. And here's Grifter and the bullet bike out of the packaging. And my goodness, you guys, these are two excellent figures, or should I say figures and vehicles from the 90s. Granted, I do think that we need some updated WildC.A.T.s because, you know, there are issues with the older figures. But this bike, whew, this thing is gorgeous. And even though this is an older figure, and of course the articulation is going to kind of, for lack of a better term, suck, it's still epic. So what am I talking about? Let's get him off the spinner and get a closer look at both of these items. Backstory on Grifter. His first appearance was WildC.A.T.s #1 from August 1992. He was created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi. And Cole Cash is a former government operative and member of the military unit Team 7 and the espionage agency International Operations. His backstory is really fleshed out in Team 7, which was done by, I believe, by Chuck Dixon. The group was deliberately exposed to an experimental chemical called the Gen factor, which activated a variety of psi powers, but it affected them mentally. And here's the thing, guys. When you say Gen factor, from what I understood is they were supposed to be Gen 12. So this crosses over into the Gen 13 comics when Fairchild and all them escape from that facility and they became Gen 13. So make sure to check that out. After Team 7, he met Zealot and they fell in love. She proceeded to teach him the ways of the Coda because, you know, she left her sisters and kind of became her own thing, sort of like Wonder Woman in a sense. But in teaching Cole the Coda way, it helped regain his sanity. And together they fell in love and they fought the Daemonites together. And sadly, from what I see, their relationship did end. But they continued to work together, and then through issue 1 of WildC.A.T.s, they joined the team thereafter. And to just kind of add some more to it, the cartoon, if you guys watched that instead of read the comics, he was voiced by Colin O'Mara, I believe is how you pronounce his name, in the animated series. And they kind of took that backstory of them falling in love, but in the cartoon, it was one season, sadly. At the end of the show's run, they both became a couple. And it was very endearing in that way. So I'm glad that we have these two different ways of the old school Image comics. I know there's different iterations, but once WildStorm reverted over, or not reverted, but went over to DC, I kind of feel like WildC.A.T.s lost their way. There's just something about that era when it first came out through Image Comics that had that intensity, all the extremeness, you could say, of the 90s. So with that said, let's check out the accessories that this figure and this vehicle come with. So we'll start with Cole here. And he has, surprisingly, a plethora of cool stuff. So just like with Spartan and Zealot that we went over, he has that badass WildC.A.T.s stand. So if you just want to put them on a shelf, you have that. Love that logo. Damn, that's nice. Kind of, if you look at it and just sort of not think about it, it looks sort of like the, what do you call it? The Klingon logo. So that's kind of cool. He does come with a customized Carabum energy blaster. And so in the cartoon, I believe they deemed Grifter a Carabum, just like Spartan and Warblade. But I believe he was just human. And then, you know, the Gen therapy is what kind of gave him his healing powers and all that stuff. But the gun, the nice silver look to it's really cool. The gold, exquisite. And, you know, of course, it was these weapons are based off the cartoon. They had to sell these toys to kids, so they couldn't really use the pistols and all that stuff. So everything in those early days, Batman the Animated Series, X-Men, all of them were lasers. They couldn't show bullets, sadly. He also comes with a high-powered stun bolt rifle. But again, even though these were made for, you know, the kids at the time, beautiful work. I mean, look at that scope. The gold on there, just a really wonderful looking piece. The other weapon that he comes with is a electro discharge, oops, there it goes, pistol. And again, just like the other weapons, matches the gold and silver theme. Just very well done. And even though it doesn't look like your typical weapons that you would see on the street, my focus is being a little turd. Still, just a nice addition to his arsenal here. Let's see, the next thing that he does come with is a trading card, which I love this. I wish that we can get more trading cards nowadays because, yeah, I know the trading card, what do you call it, scene sort of died out, but still, beautiful. So I'll get a closer look at this for you along with the back of the card. And then the last thing he comes with, just like with the rest of the WildC.A.T.s, is a fancy schmancy Halo communicator, which I don't recall the team using in the show or the comics, but, you know, accessories is what it is. Now, for the bike. Before we do the bike, I want to say that I did not add the stickers because when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking a whole lot collectors-wise, so I'd pull these off, slap them on there, or if I didn't like the sticker, I'd slap it on something else, and I think back and I'm like, God, I wish I hadn't done that. So now that I'm older, a little bit wiser, I don't want to put the stickers on the bike as much as like my mind's just like screaming, go do it. I don't want to. So I want to preserve these pieces for either, if my son is into this in the future, or if he's not, then I plan on selling my collections and I'd rather someone else enjoy this. So I'd rather just preserve this as is. And just like with Spartan, with Grifter, comes with a fancy ass little card, so I'll make sure to get, still of this as well as the back so you guys can check out the awesomeness of it. The other thing that this bike does come with are these badass missiles. And you're thinking, oh, they're just missiles, just like anything you get with G.I. Joe or any, action figure from that time. Which, yes, I'm inclined to agree with you. But let me show you what's awesome about these. So, you take this, flip it up, and yes, it's spring-loaded. So get that bad boy in there. Hear the click. Now, this is what I'm talking about. So let me put Cole up here. Put our target. Get it. Get it. You hear that bang? I totally missed him, by the way. But you just hear how hard that ricocheted off my wall. I've had G.I. Joe figures, and the projectiles have never shot that hard before. So this thing has a nice recoil to it. I'm impressed. The other thing that's really kick-ass about this bike, and again, I feel like this thing was really made before its time. Like, I don't think, G.I. Joe had accessories, and probably the one vehicle that'll always beat most of any type of line would be the G.I. Joe, the helicarrier, you know, the Navy one. But anyway, in terms of motorcycles, I mean, come on, look at this thing. I haven't been this excited over a motorcycle than when we just recently picked up the McFarlane death metal bike bat cycle. That thing is epic, and this thing is the same. I love how these swivel, and as you just saw, the projectile, bam! And then this has infrared laser shooting, you know, to hunt down the Daemonites. And then you let it go and it hides. That is just too cool. I love how the wheels spin. And then when I first turk it out, derp, you know, it kept falling over. And I went, oh crap. But Playmates, good job. I was like, oh. Whew. Now, in terms of the paint app of this thing, yeah, sadly the exhausts don't move. Just, my God, guys, I can't gush enough about this thing. I love how the whole front of it, they use these bikes a lot more in the cartoon. I don't remember them from the comics that much, but still that army green, the reds, a nice silver tint, and just the little additions like the red around here, around, oh my God. It's not the gear shaft, is it? And feel free to make fun of me down in the comments. I'm not had enough coffee, so any knowledge I have of automotives is just completely out the window. And of course, Cole sits on it relatively well, as you saw on the spinner. But yeah, I just love everything about this bike. If y'all can find it, it's definitely worth having. Now, as for the figure himself, you know, for an early 90s action figure, I'm actually really surprised. Like, I was afraid that this thing was going to suck. And I will say, let's get the bad stuff out of the way, because there is bad, but let me just get out of it. And that's more so the lack of articulation, which we'll talk about. But the legs, how they're just molded. That's it. I hated this for all the figures from that time. You know, He-Man, Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, WildCA.T.s. And you look back on it now and you're like, damn, I wish we had the range that we have now in all these modern figures. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about how awesome the figure is for what it is. His red mask, just look at that thing. Epic. His blonde hair looks great. And even though the paint on his left eye looks kind of splotched, which is just like, it looks kind of battle damaged, so I call it a happy accident, which I'm sure that's not what they were going for. But for me, that just kind of adds some badass intensity to the man that is Cole Cash. Love the gold bandolier around his chest. Black shirt looks great. The gold belt with all the bullets look awesome. And even though his legs are molded like that, the brown pants look good. And of course, everybody in the 90s always had something wrapped around their legs, which this is for bullets. Boots look awesome. Of course, his signature green coat, which I love how these pieces here are loose. Like, that's cool. Like, I actually warmed this up so he could actually sit properly on his bike. So I love that. This kind of reminds me of the coats that they used in the early Dick Tracy action figures, which, again, they all suffer from these same things of molded legs and no articulation in that regard. But for articulation, since we're here, there's not a lot to it. He does have waist swivel. Head can go that far, that's it. Arms 360, that's it. I am glad that his wrists do articulate. I don't know if it's going to be on every Grifter that you guys pick up, but this one was completely stiff, so I did have to warm that up. So at least that way you can get him on his bike properly. And see, this is what I hate is, so when he sits on the bike, it looks like he's either A, practicing Lamaze, or he's getting ready to take like an outdoor jungle crap. So that was another thing about the 90s that I hate, is whenever you try to put the Turtles in the van or He-Man on vehicles, they looked like they were getting some sort of rectal exam, and I hate that, but it is what it is. And that is it on articulation, guys. So even though the articulation from 80s, 90s sucked, at least we still get a beautiful figure overall. I mean, look at those red gloves. Oh, that looks so damn good, just like in the comics, just so gorgeous. Overall, I'm gushing. But yeah, paint apps for both the bike and Grifter, excellent. I have no gripes with the bike whatsoever. Will spin, you know, it can stand up with its kickstand, and even still, it can kind of lean off to the side. I have no complaints with that bike. Figure, love it. Articulation, I like what we have, but I hate the rest of it. But overall, great combination, beautiful looking pieces. For comparisons, here's Grifter next to his teammates, Spartan, and then Zealot over here telling no to Mr. Wade Wilson. This is the Sauron Build-A-Figure Wave X-Men. Deadpool, who somehow always finds himself in my comparison videos. I don't know how it happens. Maybe it's just some sort of weird, sick thing in the back of my head. I don't know. And then, of course, the Age of Apocalypse Deluxe Apocalypse. And then, of course, sort of from the same time period as these figures, this was the Man of Steel Kenner's Superboy. And here's what kind of throws me off is you look at Zealot, she's almost the same size as Wade, so around 6 inches. Here, she actually towers over both Grifter and Spartan, so they're probably around like, what, 5.5 inch. But I don't understand why they made this Man of Steel line so small. Like, obviously, Superboy in that line is smaller because he's a teenager, and Steel and the black suit Superman and the regular suited one tower over him. But I don't know why they made this figure so damn small. But nonetheless, I'm happy to have that Superboy until McFarlane can once again get off his ass and give us a good Superboy and some more Wildcats already. But anyway, I digress. What I'm getting at here is look at how far action figures have evolved from having rarely any articulation to having comic accurate, but again, still no decent articulation, so it just sits on a shelf and you can't do nothing with it, to having what DC Multiverse and Hasbro is doing with, you know, the new G.I. Joes, the Marvel Legends. It's just mind-blowing how far that we have come, and it makes me happy to be part of the journey and enjoying all of these action figures. Let me know what you guys think of all these figures down in the comments below, and let me know if Zealot should go ahead and behead Wade or let him go. I am in love with this set, y'all. I was a little hesitant to review both of these at first, but now that I've taken them out, done some posing with them, I am just over the moon delighted. This bullet bike, definitely something that was before its time. I've had accessories, you know, through the years, and I wish I would have known about the Wildcats when I was younger. I kind of knew a little bit about them, but I didn't know enough to really want to get into it. And, you know, the backstory, this was really something special now that, you know, there's been age on the comic books and, surprisingly, the cartoon. And going back and checking out these figures again just really brings it all back into perspective of how awesome 90s Image was. And guys, if you can, find this bullet bike and get yourself a Grifter. I love how this is soft plastic so you can kind of warm it up and mess with it. I'm glad that his hands are articulated, but still, you know, it suffers from all those 90s action figure things where everything is just kind of molded, and that's the way it is, and that kind of sucks. But what can you do? Hopefully, maybe one of these days, McFarlane will get off the pot and actually give us some updated Wildcat figures for the DC Multiverse, since WildStorm is part of that line now. So, fingers crossed. If you guys have enjoyed these action figures, again, these are not sold in stores anymore, so I'll keep my fingers crossed for you guys that you can find them online or the secondary market. Definitely worth it, y'all. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Wildcats roar barrel next to subscribe, that way as we can continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, photo slideshow coming up next. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.